Ladies and gentlemen, it's the CBSI Bolo Show! Now sit back and relax as Brian and Jack recap first appearances, reader buzz, and hottest variants in comic books releasing each and every week. Coming to you from an unidentified command center, here's your host, Brian Wood!
What's going on, guys? Thursday night, as you know, CBSI Bolo Show, every Thursday, 9 p.m. Welcoming everyone into the stream. Pretty good week for comics. There's some great books out there, but it was actually also a slow week for comics. Building up, you saw some people saying, hey, it's a pretty crap week, but then you've seen some reactions of some of the books that did come out that have been pretty positive. So we're going to go through that tonight. We're going to go through the hottest comic releases and, of course, the CBSI Bolo list. As always, I have my co-host here, Jack DeMeo, a.k.a. Mr. Bolo. Go ahead and introduce yourself, buddy.
What's going on, Brian? What's going on, everybody? As he said, my name is Jack DeMeo, a.k.a. Mr. Bolo. And, yeah, it was a very interesting week. It's one filled with a lot of anticipation. It's being down-talked, but I'm here to kind of sell you on a few things tonight. So we'll see. Let's get into it.
All right. So, real quick, people coming in the chat, are we having echo issues again? It's a wild echo. So, I'm going to sit here and take a look at this real quick. Make sure we got this going on.
Yep. Let me check all.
It's probably on our end, on my end with the setup. So, I'm going to make sure we got going on here. That's off. Let me know if it starts sounding any better. Are we still getting an echo out there?
Yeah, you probably have to check my volume.
Mel V, you hearing us echo still? Yep. All right, let me check this all out here. Got this going in. Got this coming in. Is it both of us echoing? Or just...
Is it just me?
Or is it just Jack? We're starting people say it sounds good. Make sure I have the YouTube muted. So, I think the sound sounds okay so far. Are we better?
How we doing, guys?
So it sounds like it's isolated to Mel.
Yeah.
Anyone else get an echo? Okay, we're going to move on. Having said that.
Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah. Okay, we good now. So,
all right.
That's good. That's why we also glad to have people in the chat let us know, hey, your stuff's effed up.
Heck yes.
But
and
yeah,
better than that than going through half the show and then we find out.
Yeah, let us fix it at the beginning. But so in addition to the video, you can also hear us echo in the audio only version, and that's the CBSI Comic Book Bolo podcast, available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And as always, this show is sponsored by SlabbedHeroes.com. Nick at Slabbed Heroes always takes care of people. I just got like 4 orders in from him this week. Really happy about that. So if you want modern comics at a guaranteed 9.8, plus he does a lot of other. He sells Raws. He sells CGC Signature Series. Definitely check out SlabbedHeroes.com. Great price and great service. So, why are we here? Of course, it's the Bolo Show, so we have the Bolo list. Bolo list as the recap on the screen. We go over the confirmed first appearances for the week, reader buzz of comics for the week, and variant buzz, and then we end it with Mr. Bolo's long-term play. And the list is put out all over the place, right? Instagram, right. Twitter.
All over CBSI social media. So we've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, MeWe. It's comicbookinvest.com with the exclusive comicbookinvest.com back issue Bolo section. So yeah, you check it out everywhere. I always encourage people, make sure you go to comicbookinvest.com and are also checking out the article version so you can get that back issue Bolo section in a little extra context. And if you're going to be in the LCS looking for new comic books on New Comic Book Day, might as well hit those back issue bins and see what you can pick up.
Exactly. So I put it out. Of course, we put it out on Twitter And we actually it was pretty cool this week. We put it on Twitter, tagged some of the creators for the comics that are out, and we actually got some replies back where, like, Mike Diodato Jr., he liked the tweet, and he also retweeted it, and there's a couple other creators. I know Stan Kanapka, who's the writer of Rejected, so it's definitely cool to see stuff get spread, and the Bolo list belongs to the community, guys. We're the guardians of the Bolo, right, which we said last week, but so it's definitely all over social media. But getting into it, I got to stop because Mel just put in the chat, which is a big thing. Chewbacca, right? Did you see that?
Right. I literally just saw that while I was putting my notes together for the show.
Right. So I was on my kid's soccer practice field when I saw it. And yeah, so rest in peace. Of course, I would have told you 5 times before we came on here, but I forget the actor's name now. But moving then to the first appearances for the week. These are confirmed first appearances, right? And this is also done Tuesday night, so anything that's come out before that has first appearances in doesn't show up on the Bolo list, right, Jack?
Right. So we're talking most of the first appearances are ones we knew about, ones that were solicited, and I did get a little bit of a spoiler preview on a few books before I was able to send the list off to for print. But it's things that we were 100% sure of on release day that we could tell you these were first appearances.
Right. And before we actually start going into these books, as always, welcoming people into the chat. We got Ben C. We got JB from Discovery Bay Comics. As always, make sure you check out Discovery Bay Comics. He has that YouTube community channel guide, which I've been horrible at because, I've been super busy with my day job and kids. So I've been giving him bum gouge, saying, hey, I got this video coming out, and it hasn't. So, but definitely check him out. He's got a great comic community lineup on his channel. And as always, if you have a YouTube channel and you're in the chat, make sure you put your channel name in the chat so people can see it, check out your content, and subscribe to it as well. Mighty Mel V, he's in the chat. He gave us heads up on audio issues. Shane Griffin, always great guy, always in the chat. Definitely appreciate him. Make sure that's a DC Deadman fan, right? Is his
Correct.
Instagram tag?
Yep.
So check him out on there. I believe he's also in the CBSI Writer Wars. Is that correct?
He is. He's a Writers Wars contestant. Definitely looking forward to seeing what he's able to cook up.
Comic Book Gallery, he's also got a YouTube channel. Does a lot of great hauls, other like review videos. So definitely check him out. Real quick, sorry, I know you guys want to see the list and get into it, but speaking of Writer Wars, you want to kind of give a summary of what's going on with the Writer Wars and how that's going to carry out. And
right, Writers Wars is coming very soon. We have 17 entrants in Writers Wars who are going to kind of battle it out Mortal Kombat style. We are going to whittle it down and pick just one winner, and there are some cool prizes associated with Writers Wars. But what's even cooler is somebody is going to get to join our comicbookinvest.com team. And the great thing about the Writers Wars process is both comicbookinvest.com readers and contributors, we get a chance to see how you are able to step up, how your content is received. And it's also something where we let people know, like, Andy Tomberlin didn't win last year, but he has been a absolute valued member of our team. Ben Stein, the writer of A Hot 10, did not win the year he was in the Writers Wars contest, and he is an extremely valuable member of our team. So you're talking about like an MVP and a Rookie of the Year right there, and neither of them won. So I encourage everybody, like, till the very end, you come out swinging, you do your best. If you didn't get a chance to get in Writers Wars, this is a great opportunity to check it out. Follow along with us. Maybe Brian and I will even work up some update content for the Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel to kind of let you guys know how Writers Wars is doing. But, check it out because we're going to do it again. We want it to be a regular thing. And, it's one thing to jump in a comment section on an article, but people work really hard on these articles. And I love to give people the opportunity to jump in and say, man, if you want to do it, do it. We're open. We're an open community. We always have been. And we want the best talent. So this lets us see who's the best and lets people go head to head. And I got to be honest with you, it's entertaining and it's amazing the quality of content that comes out of this contest.
right.
So good luck to all the contestants.
Yeah, and I want to give a big shout out to Caleb Comic Smurf Murphy. Huge $5 super chat there. Thanks a lot. Make sure as well that you have your YouTube channel name in the chat and check him out. Yeah, YouTube, huge comic community. So many channels out there. A lot of great content. So never going to starve for any content if you want to look on YouTube. As always, we got Big Leggett and Mighty Mel V. They have their own every Wednesday night at 10:30ish. Unpressable Defects, so definitely check them out as well. But we're going to go ahead and move into the Bolo list, right? First appearances up on the screen. And the first comic in that list had to be you that put it on there because wasn't me. That is Major X #1. This is the second print, correct?
Right. And see now, again, and the Major X is on this list 2 times with 2 different books. There were 2 Major X books released this week. And I think Major X is the antithesis of buzz, because you can feel how you want to feel about Major X, but everyone's talking about it. If you bring up Major X in a chat, it's going to get noticed. It's going to get talked about. The key for this book is it was solicited before the full-on hype train. This book got solicited, I think, a couple days before the release of the first print. It showed us the word had gotten out who the identity of Major X was, originally called Genesis from an old cable run. And here we get to see the unmasked Major X and on the second print cover. So, you know, you can say what you want about Liefeld art, but the idea of a masked character who we don't know on the first print, unmasked on the second print is very attractive. The print run is probably higher than a typical second print would be because the first print boomed so much, but at the same point, not as high as you would probably think, because at the same point, there's so many detractors who are going to constantly talk to you about how bad the art is. That is the reason I originally advocated an investment in Major X. As people talk negatively about it, it takes a certain investment community out of it. At the same point, there's a diehard Liefeld fan base. I preach that every week, and it exists. There's a diehard group of collectors who are nostalgic for these 90s comics. And there's a group of people, and that group can be extremely large. It can even be the majority, who can make fun of people who are fans of that type of work, but they exist. And they exist, and they're buying this issue. So this issue, we're seeing a slight drop off. It's still cover price to a couple dollars over cover price. I think this one, the reason why it hasn't, say, sold out is a lot of stores like Midtown started limiting very early, 1 per customer. But it has sold out at distributor level. It will sell out at retailer level probably sometime in the next week. And they've already solicited a 3rd print for Major X #1 with a 1 in 25 3rd print incentive. And they also announced another one similar to that for Immortal Hulk. So it looks like we are full on into these late printing incentives.
Yeah, and let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Are you for that or against it? Before you say it, I'll tell you I'm against it.
Yeah.
Because
go ahead.
It seems like a money grab to me.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, like a Patreon member was asking me today, is like, do you think it's worth it? I was like, I'd rather. I said, there's a slight chance. I'm talking about the Immortal Hulk 5th print, #2, 1 in 25 they're coming out with, right? And I said, there's a very slight chance that might end up like the Booger Green Hulk 377, but I don't see it going that route because there's all those other prints out there. I don't mind being a 5th print, but I think a 1 in 25 incentive for other printings. They tested the waters, and it seemed like Immortal Hulk, the 16 second print, it was already hot just from the FOMO of Immortal Hulk in general, so people were going after it. But I think initially you're just going to see that kind of die out. But that's just my opinion.
Right. So, well, first off, I see some comments. Are we getting an echo here?
Is it?
Yeah, I saw some comments after I was talking. I want to make sure
I'm
everything.
seeing it in there also. So, all right.
But yeah, so echo's gone now. Okay, good. So my take on this, obviously I'm a huge advocate for late prints. I kind of feel Like, I'm one of the ones, not personally responsible, but people that think in terms of me. I'm a huge fan of them, and I've been advocating that we need to be buying them and that stores are not buying them, and that I think there's going to come a time where they're going to really rise in value. I've talked about Edge of the Spider-Verse later prints. I've advocated many later prints here on the Bolo show. The idea of a 1 in 25 incentive for a later print doesn't in total bother me. Well, there's things about the way Marvel's gone about it that bother me. Just changing the color to an already popular 1 in 25 incentive on Immortal Hulk 16, I don't like that. That doesn't serve the community any purpose. It's a straight grab. Doing it the way they're doing it for Immortal Hulk #2, where the regular book is a sketch cover and then the incentive is a virgin, I kind of like that. But where I have a problem with it is they're allowing stores to do variants off of it, which is my real problem why ultimately I say I don't like it. Because as long as stores are doing variants off of it, stores are incentivized. Hey, I do 3,000. I have to do a 3,000 cover purchase from Marvel. But at least by doing that, I know I'm going to get a whole mess of 1 in 25 incentives, which I can then sell on the market. And if I don't sell all my variant, who cares? Because I'll make my money off my incentives. And they're just producing, honestly, I hate to say it, bad variants. Some of these Immortal Hulk variants were not good. They're reused art. They were art that the artist didn't, in the last several years, want to use or try to pitch to use. And it just seems like retailers are rushing out to produce these variants so that they can grab these incentives. And that depresses the overall market of the incentive. So as a speculator trying to predict whether or not I should invest in like the Major X third print, should I buy the incentive or should I buy the Immortal Hulk 2 Virgin? It's tough because part of me says, I want to sit it out. At the same point, I got a message from Nick from Slabbed Heroes today telling me that the Immortal Hulk #2 5th print is his like most active selling pre-sale he's had in a very long time. So people are buying it. So it's very tough. It's very hard to judge. I hope that if Marvel is going to continue to do this, they tighten up this program and round it out, and they make some improvements. I like the cover art improvement, but they got to cut the store variants out of later prints. That's just going to kill it. The print runs are going to be way too huge.
Yeah, I'm willing to miss out on something than to put my money on those.
And that's always my suggestion to speculators is let somebody else take the risk.
Yeah.
Let somebody else take the risk you watch, and rather than don't be the test dummy for the market.
But I will say if it does take off, kudos to them. Because you have the other people out there that, trash talk everything, especially when it takes off, you'll see them trash talk more. And it's that whole thing of whether they really hated it or they're just sour that they didn't get in on it.
There's a lot of jumping. And again, same thing with like the Major X in general. There's a lot of jumping on the bandwagon. A lot of, this person talks negatives and then everybody jumps on. So the later prints are a hot topic right now. Major X is a hot topic. Those are hot things to kind of bag on, but we'll see. It is important to note that the Immortal Hulk 16 second print incentive did end up on the Hot 10 list the week after release. It did go for double ratio.
So, but not the 125 or whatever some people are. But still good. I mean, if you're going double ratio for a second print, kudos.
Right.
But. So moving into the first appearances, we have Savage Avengers #1. And that had eight different covers for it this week.
Right, a bunch of covers.
Which is first appearance of the team Savage Avengers.
Savage Avengers, which of course now we talk about teams on here. I'm more optimistic about this team than other teams because it's its own title. You can obviously look at the lineup. You're looking at Wolverine, Venom. You're looking at Conan. You're looking at major characters, Punisher. But you got to look at this team and go, is there going to be a Savage Avengers movie? No chance. Is there going to be a Savage Avengers TV show? No chance. So what would really pop this off on a speculation level? Your only chance is some serious long-term reader buzz. That would be the only – it reminds me of Uncanny X-Force where they put some popular characters like Psylocke, Phantom X, and Deadpool together,
Yeah.
or the Thunderbolts run from I think 2013, where you had Red Hulk and Punisher and Deadpool and Elektra. It reminds me of those teams where it may be popular from a reader standpoint, but I don't know long term that there's going to be real value there. The 125 and the 150, which is a Bianchi and a U variant, are selling for about half ratio right now. So if you do want to invest, it's ripe for an investment. And then I have on the variant buzz section the Morbius Hidden Gem 1 in 100 variant, which depicts Elektra, which I think is a stunning cover, real different. And it's an interesting case because it was selling for $125 pre-sale and selling well enough that I picked it for our Wednesday Warriors column on comicbookinvest.com, where Brian and I go one-on-one for New Comic Book Day Supremacy. And I felt really good about picking it, but it has dropped to about $80. So now it's below ratio. So this is kind of a cold series right now, which surprises me. I thought there would be more heat on it. But like Brian opened the show with, there's been a lot of kind of talk of this being a down week. I actually think there's some good stuff this week, but the market has shown that it's down.
Right. And I would still, everything you just said makes perfect sense, but I would still buy this 10 times more than I would buy freaking West Coast Avengers. That Peach Pit bubblegum. Like, this is like the story I'd rather read than, like, no offense to West Coast Avengers, but I'm not the demographic for that audience. Because
no doubt, but West Coast Avengers has a better chance of being a TV show.
Yeah.
Than Savage Avengers does. But I feel you on that. As far as a read, there's a better chance that Savage Avengers pops off as a reader buzz 4 or 5 issues in than West Coast Avengers, which actually people who have read it have constantly telling me it's a good read, but I agree with you. It's not meant for an audience of you and I.
So, yeah, that's just me. But moving on. Next in the confirmed first appearance list, you have Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, number 1.
Yes.
And you said you actually read this book this week, right?
I did. This is the only book I've read so far. I have only previewed and spoiled myself on certain books. So far, I've got my shipment coming, so I haven't read anything other than this book. But I gotta be honest with you, I really like this book from a sleeper speculation perspective. So this is where I say, there's a lot of talk about it being a negative week, but I actually think that this book may have some legs, and here's why. You've got the first appearance of the Laughing Man. Now, the Laughing Man is a cross between the Joker and Shredder. Now, again, these hodgepodge kind of amalgam characters, they've been hit or miss. But we've seen success with Batman Who Laughs. We've seen success with several kind of, Marvel doing this all over the place. But we have not seen a ton of character development within TMNT. And what I like about this is we already know there's a Batman TMNT movie coming. Now, it won't have this character in it. It won't have any of the characters that appear here. But if that movie is successful, then there's no doubt they will build into this story. This is part of the third part of the trilogy series. So similar to the way Mad Cave releases series is, and if you're not familiar with that, check out our new show, the Indie Spotlight show, right here on Simpleman's Comics YouTube channel, where Chris Sanchez from Mad Cave Studios talks about they release trilogy miniseries, and that's how this Batman TMNT book has been released. This is the first issue of the third part. The first 2 were released under IDW. It's IDW DC Collabo. The first 2 were released under IDW's kind of flagship. So you had incentive variants, an A cover and a sub cover, and there was a lot of store variants. This was released under DC, so now we have an A and a DC cover B done by Kevin Eastman, which is, if I'm picking between the 2 covers, is probably the cover I'm going to go with. For the same kind of rationale, we all pick DC cover Bs over cover A. But I've given you kind of like the movie reason that it could build into a movie. Another reason I think that it's a good spec play is that nobody's talking about it. It's readily available for cover price. If you're buying it, you got to buy it long term, but it's available. The other thing is, the Joker character isn't the only new character in the series. What kind of like blew me away is there's an entire gang called the Smile Gang, and it's like the Foot Clan, or it might be the Smile Clan. And there's foot soldiers with Joker eyes smiles. There's a Clayface and Rocksteady amalgam character. There's a Killer Croc and Bebop character. And then each of the turtles kind of take the moniker of another member of the Bat family. So Leonardo, he has a Nightwing kind of logo on his chest, and he wears a cape similar to Nightwing. Raphael wears a hood just like the Red Hood, and he has the Red Hood's logo on his chest. Michelangelo is Damien, and Donatello is an older version of the Red Hood. So there's a lot of stuff to unpack there as far as like the amount of, I guess, first appearances that technically appear in this issue could be several. There's also a Harley Quinn Karai kind of amalgam to keep an eye out for. If you want to see these characters, go on Twitter and look at the writer James Tinian IV, his Twitter feed. He has posted character design drawings similar to the one that Brian has posted here for the Laughing Man for all of these new characters. So again, it's part of a 3-part trilogy. This is setting off the ending to this 3-part trilogy. They've already fought Shredder. They've already fought Joker. And now they're fighting the Laughing Man. And I really think that this one has gone kind of completely under everyone's radar.
Right. So we got more people coming in the chat. We got Joe Seaborn. First time I think he's been in the chat for our show. So definitely want to say welcome to him. Carolina Chris 26. He was one of the giveaway winners. Welcome to him. Elephant in the Room. No, really, that's his name. Welcome. But so moving on. The last for the first appearances this week was the long title. Star Wars Age of Rebellion Han Solo #1, right?
Right. And again, this is another book with kind of a sneaky first appearance. Another book where down week because we're not seeing booming on sales on eBay. But again, this is speculation. Speculation is not meant. It's not flipping. This I don't advocate flipping. Flipping gets you caught. Speculation can make you money, but you got to play the long game. This is the first appearance of a character named Akko. That's Akko. And this is a longtime friend of Han Solo's. This is a kind of what does the solicitation say? It says an old friend who may out-scoundrel Han. So you kind of get an idea that you're looking at another Han Solo type of character. The Han Solo movie was successful. Now, yes, Disney did decide to scale back the Star Wars releases, but a lot of that was due to kind of the social media buzz and the pressure over people kind of feeling like these movies were getting over-released. And they kind of decided to scale them back because they weren't hitting the record-setting numbers that Star Wars was used to hitting. But each Star Wars movie was successful, and Star Wars fans like Rogue One, they like Last Jedi, and we're talking on the whole here, and they like Han Solo. And Han Solo happens to be in my opinion, one of my favorites because it's just a fun movie. And if they are gonna go down and do a sequel at any point with the actor who played Han Solo and Donald Glover as Lando, we could see this character pop up in a future movie. Also, again, they're gonna have, since they're ending the story with this next Star Wars movie, they're gonna have to go back prequel for future movies, so it could play into this character. And this is a character that was created through this comic. So right now these issues aren't moving anything over cover price. Ratio variants are below ratio, so it's a buying opportunity. If you're into Star Wars investment, it's a shot in the dark, but it may be one that pans out. So I like it in the same way I kind of like the Batman TMNT book.
I did really like the Putri Luke Skywalker Wampa Greatest Moments cover. I think I had that in the Wednesday one this week also, but that was my favorite cover out of, course, Han Solo book, and I like the Luke Skywalker cover, but yeah. And with that, we wrap up the first appearance section for the week. So next, coming up on board, we have the Reader Buzz and the real quick summary of the Reader Buzz books for this week. Excuse me. We have 7 books this week, right?
Right.
Year of the Villain, Fallen World, Major X, the new Major X, Batman, Ninja Turtles. We're gonna not go into that over the Reader Buzz, but it was in that section. Rejected, new Rejected from Source Point Press. One of my favorite books in Deathstroke with the finale to Terminus Agenda, which I haven't been able to read yet. And, of course, Walking Dead, which we'll get into that, but what's going to roll right into it, right?
Right, let's do it.
All right. So the first book on the Reader Buzz was DC's Year of the Villain #1.
DC's Year of the Villain #1, I think, is one of the most interesting releases that I've seen, because if we were to look at this and I was to say, was it successful from a spec perspective, what would you say, Brian?
Sorry, I was answering chat.
My fault. I said if you were to look at this book in from a spec perspective and say, is it successful, what would you say?
One thing I don't like about that is it's a 25-cent book.
Right.
And when you look at what speculators, they go and get these 1 in 500s, these higher ratio books, and then what they're selling for, a lot of times if you do the math, you could buy at 25 cents a piece, you could buy them for less than what the books are going for. So you're going to find that as a success for flippers, because if they're getting the money they're asking for, that's above what you can get it for if you were to order that many copies at $0.25 a piece.
My man.
But yeah, these books are always tricky when they have that quarter 25-cent buy-in to me.
My man. I hope you guys heard what Brian just said, because you got to be careful when DC is going to keep releasing these, because they've done 2 and they've been successful. So I think we're going to keep seeing these. So the key becomes, how do you buy these? And I think the biggest key is to avoid shops like Midtown, who are really busting you on the head. You have to learn how to figure out what ratio is for these books. We're all used to looking at ratio as $1 per the amount of copies. So if it's a 1 in 500 variant, the ratio is 500. So if Midtown's offering you the Jim Chung Batman Who Laughs 1 in 500 variant for $106, your brain tells you good deal. But in reality, it's not. So what Brian said, talking about math, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to break down some math on this one. So you have the variants that are listed here are 1 in 500, 1 in 250. That's the Lex Luthor, Alex Maleev variant. And then 1 in 100, the Art Germ Cheetah variant. If a store ordered 500 copies of this book and they paid 25 cents each, or that would be the retail price. The wholesale price at half that is $62.50 for the whole deal. The way we look at ratio, again, being $1 per book sold to reach that incentive, isn't right here when the books are a quarter. The average selling price for a comic on newsstands is $4. So if this is a quarter, it's 1/16. So if we were to divide the ratio by 16, and I know that might sound confusing and like heavy math, but you're just trying to get that book down to where it accounts for the book being a quarter. The true ratio value of each of these books, the 1 in 500 is 31 1/4. For the 1 in 250, it's $15.63. For the 1 in 100, it's $6.25. That's what true mathematical ratio is for these books. That makes them equivalent to any other book that gets released on release day. And when we look at the sales in comparison to what the ratios are, Batman Who Laughs variant is going for $50 on eBay. Well, at $31.25, that's going above ratio. So it's actually doing very well. If we look at the 1 in 250, it's going for $13.50. So it's actually going slightly below ratio. And then if we look at the 1 in 100, it's going for $10-15. So it's actually going solidly above the $6.25 ratio. So there is a lot of opportunity to make money here. The key is, where are you buying from? Are you buying from a store who is charging? There's a lot of stores out there that I've seen who are charging respectful prices. I've seen the 1 in 100s priced as low as $5. The 1 in 250s at $10. But I've also seen, like we said, the Midtown prices that are out of this world and triple what true ratio is. So on the whole, I think this book is actually performing very well. It's actually doing solidly. Also, I don't want to spoil it, but it leads into the Leviathan story that's going to be coming up from Brian Michael Bendis. I got a feeling about that story. It kind of gives me a feeling similar to Major X. I hate to use that comparison, but I had a feeling that story was going to be popular. People are down talking Bendis because of Naomi. Naomi's taken off. It's extremely popular. Everyone who missed out is blaming people like us. So they may overlook Leviathan. And if you read this quarter issue today, they started off that story. We got to kind of meet the face of Leviathan, although we don't know his identity yet. But this could be considered a first appearance. I'm not really sure how that's going to play out. And he approached a superhero and talked to her about joining his cause. And that is kind of a reason why we see maybe some superheroes on the Villains Month covers in July that we have previewed on the Comic Book Invest Instagram over the last week. So we've got a lot of comments, people saying, well, why is Lois Lane on there? Or why is Oracle on there? Or why is this person or that person? And I think we're going to find out through stories. So that is something to keep an eye on. And there's also a lot of back issues with Leviathan to look into. But I like this book. I think it's undervalued. I think if you see it going for around the ratio that we talked about, keep an eye out for it. But yeah, you can do the math anytime with these books. It's just I think a lot of people aren't doing it. So I hope some of that made sense.
Yeah, we just had like Schoolhouse Rocks with AKA Mr. Bolo.
Yeah, you should see my math on the paperwork. It's
that was easier to figure out than MCU's time travel theory. So yeah,
yeah, definitely. Ben Stein ruined that movie for me.
Yeah. But so moving into the reader buzz, we had next was The Fallen World #1. This was from Valiant.
From Valiant. So this is a book I wish I knew more about. I haven't gotten a chance to check it out yet. There was a lot of buzz with this book. It's a kind of new rye interpretation. It's a jumping on point. It's a kind of a world building story. The David Mack variant is doing pretty well. I think it's a 1 in 10 incentive. It may have been a open order variant, but David Mack variant's actually doing pretty well. It's selling out at a lot of places. But I've heard a lot of buzz for this series, and when I met with the Valiant team several months ago, they were really excited for this one. I think it's going to be kind of a slow burn reader type thing, Valiant core audience type book. But it's one to keep an eye out for. Again, I like speculating on things other people are talking bad about, because that means that other speculators get swayed by the negative opinions. And I'd rather be a bigger fish in a small pond. So Valiant, something I've got my eye on. They're definitely down. Losing Dinesh Shamdasani really hurt them. But I have faith in their new editor, Robert Myers, who he's been there. He was worked under Dinesh, and he's got a real vision for that company. And also, he is the brother-in-law of CBSI member Jason Shaw. So that's actually kind of cool.
Right. And you bring up a good point about how you personally will. I wouldn't say it's your commandment that you spec on whatever you hear bad about, but it's one of the things I like to hear when people talk about where they spec on their own stuff, right? They spec on what they want to spec on. Do you see a lot of times where there's a lot of follow the leader, or people will just spec on whatever they hear the buzz about, which is kind of what the reader buzz section is. So you'll hear us here. We'll get comments like you're swaying the market one way or another, when we're really not. We're just talking about what the buzz was for comics. We even provide our explanations in this show. So people often comment bad about it, don't watch the show evidently. So either way,
because we spend a lot of time on this show talking about, we work in a lot of strategy talk, and we work in a lot of talk about our philosophies on speculation. And, really some of the problems that people attribute to people like you and I, actually it's people that aren't watching and aren't listening to what we're trying to tell them, because they're going out and making these decisions based on like short-term profits and flips, not investments, not speculation. And they're again, the follow the leader thing is huge. You're really hit on something there, because as soon as talking heads start saying something, it's either everyone agrees or everyone disagrees, but everyone picks one side, and there can only be one. And that's why people say, like, oh, the market decided. And, well, the market can be a bully sometimes. And sometimes being on the little guy's side, there's an old saying, the masses are asses. And, that sometimes comes true. So I like to kind of go a different route sometimes when I see an opportunity that others aren't looking at. And I've tried to use this platform to share that with other people, because I genuinely want other people to kind of see that opportunity and kill some of that negativity that we have within the hobby and industry. So I hope we're doing some of that on this show. I'll take getting teased for the pony books for that all day.
Yeah, and Major X. But,
yes, and Major X.
Yeah, I always just say that. Like, I'll always say I don't hate it, but I don't like it, so I don't buy it. And a lot of times we always say, buy what you like, right? And then you'll get the comments of, well, you say that, but that doesn't mean anything. Well, then I'll say something different. Own your results. It's your money. You're spending on it. Own it. Take responsibility for the money you're spending on what you put on. Don't blame others for swaying you when ultimately you're the one taking it up to the cash register or put it in that cart and hitting checkout.
Yep, and I have no problem with my Major X purchases. I sit here proudly talking about it. I feel good about it. I feel good about it as a speculation. I felt good about it as an investment. I've already made a little bit of money on it. I'm glad people jumped off of it, but I hope at least one person listened to the show and made some money off of it and said, you know what, I'll give it a second try.
But either way, speaking of Major X, in your reader buzz, you had Major X number 3 this week, correct?
Right. So it continued the run again of selling out at distributor level. But it's important to note that it's not performing like 1 and 2 did. And I think that's because there was a rise in copies ordered from, retailers. And that's to be expected. You have success with issues 1 and 2. They rushed out second printing, so stores know they can still market to set builders with the second print of number 1, the second print of number 2, and the first print of number 3. But we are seeing sales at about $5 to $8. It's selling well. It's gonna, again, like I said with the second print of number 1, it's gonna sell out. It's gonna sell out at retailer level. It was limited early. It's drying up. It's selling for briskly at cover to slightly above cover. But we've seen a drop in the trend in prices as copies ordered have increased. Issue 1 sold for about 15 to 20. Issue 2, 10 to 13. Issue 3, 5 to 8. And that's kind of typical in a series. I bet issue 4 will see maybe not a sellout. It's quite possible. But it's I think a 6 or 5 issue miniseries. So it's wrapping up very, very shortly. But with the sales of it, I don't think we'll see the last of Major X. I wholeheartedly expect to see Major X appear somewhere else in the Marvel Universe, quite possibly, and probably to the hope of many listeners of Bolo Show, without maybe somebody other than Rob Liefeld working on the character. But I think the character is a hit, and I think Marvel has to see money.
So, then Dark Horse, I haven't read Major X. I'm not a big, I don't really care to, but didn't Dark Horse, they also had a series years ago that was just titled X, right? The character kind of looked like this guy, but with a cape.
Very much so. Very, very much so.
Yeah. So, I'm not saying one thing or another. Just, I remember when I saw this, I was like, man, I look familiar with that, like the character from Dark Horse, but, yeah. Moving. Oh, I do want to say one thing. I'm sorry, I totally forgot. I didn't forget, but huge shout out Andy Tomlin with the super chat. Andy Tomlin, Indie Spotlight. He writes the Indie Spotlight article for comicbookinvest.com. We also have the Indie Spotlight show that we had the first episode with Mad Cave Studios that's on this channel that you can go back and watch. But we have some, I'm going to save it towards the end, but we have some big announcements coming with that Indie Spotlight show, don't we?
Definitely.
We have some stuff in the works. So
behind the scenes work, and just because you haven't seen announcements yet,
yeah.
One thing about us and our squad, we keep everything kind of below the surface until we're really ready to let it out.
Yeah, but we're gonna talk a little bit about that towards the end. But next, this was kind of a big book, and that was Volume 2, or I don't know if you want to call it volume 2 because they're like basically one shots, but The Rejected, the Unwilling,
Right.
book number 2, we'll say. This is from Source Point Press, Stan Konopka, the writer. I've been seeing the buzz. There's a lot of store variants because the first book took off, man. It came out like gangbusters. Well, I want to say gangbusters, but it got hot, kind of slowed. Then the second print came out and it went hot again. But this book seems to be, there's definitely some reader buzz on it.
Yeah, first off, shout out to Stan Konopka. He also retweeted the Bolo list. So I definitely want to shout him out. Appreciate the support. Yeah, and then I want to go ahead and again, one of the things that we talk about on this show is mistakes. So I made a mistake on this one. I underestimated this one. I did not pre-order this book. I just had an opportunity to pre-order this book pre-FOC, looked at it, thought about it, and similar to what Brian talked about, I hearkened back to that Volume 1 release and the way it shot up in price, but then died off real hard. And we see that with a lot of indies. We get blamed for that when that's not really the case. That's an issue 1 sort of thing where everyone jumps on issue 1, and then when issue 2 and 3 come out, the prices tend to start dropping because people aren't really readers. They're trying to hoard it and buy. And this being a one-shot, it's kind of a unique thing. So volume 2 of a one-shot, I really didn't expect much, so I didn't even order it. Like we talked about earlier, I sat it out. That's kind of my philosophy on books like where you're not really sure. The book had a weird release date situation. It was supposed to come out last week, got moved to this week. The web store at Source Point Press apparently was selling them and shipping them because there were in-hand copies on eBay.
And they had them out at cons.
At cons, okay. So, there were in-hand copies on eBay. So the prices were hitting over $20 last week. The prices have dropped a bit, but we're still seeing about $15 in sales, which is well over cover price. And what's really blown me away is some of these store variants. As a producer of store variants, man, I feel like we missed the boat on this one because I was really surprised by some of these store variants are selling $50, $60, $70 for some of these low print, whether it's virgin covers or movie homage covers. There's a lot of really nice covers done by some various stores. And I also know that we did a contest on comicbookinvest.com for a Stores Rejected store variant. It's missing me at the moment, but always check out comicbookinvest.com. One thing that's pretty awesome about Ben C is he runs a ton of contests giving away store variants from other stores that participate. And all we're ever really looking for is information from our readership that can help us make decisions in the future. But these great opportunities to get free variants. Yeah, this one was kind of incredible. I didn't see it coming to this sort of success. I think time will tell whether it sustains. I kind of expect it to drop off, similar to the way the last one did over time. But either way, shout out to Stan Konopka because he's got a hit here. There's no doubt if he releases. I don't know where this. I haven't read it, so I don't know where the story's going. But if he releases a volume 3, I think we'll see similar results. I won't not order that one. I promise you that.
Yeah, and I will tell you, if you do see him, if you go to a con and Source Point is there and Stan Konopka's there, talk to him, man, because he'll sit there and tell you all about the book and all the storyline. And you can kind of, great guy, great personality, but you can see that part of his personality that he goes into to write this story. I haven't read the second one yet. I've read the first one a couple times, and it's out there. Well, yeah, it's pretty dark, but huge shout out. We just got another super chat from Carolina Chris. Thank you so much. He said, shout out to the Bolo Show, keeping us in the know. Shout out to all my YouTubers and comic collectors. So thanks so much, buddy, for the $5 super chat.
Man, we really appreciate that.
Yes. And he has comic haul videos on his channel as well. So if you want to watch some comic hauls, definitely check out Carolina Chris 26 in the chat. Check out his YouTube channel. But so moving on, Deathstroke number 43 was the next. This was the finale to the Terminus Agenda, right?
Yes.
I haven't read it yet. I'm anxious to.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. This is one of those ones that I've got to watch how I talk about. So this one was highly anticipated. It was one I had my eye on as possibly a book to grab.
Especially that Clayton Crane cover.
Yes, if what people were thinking was going to happen would have happened, that Clayton Crane cover would have been the one to grab for sure. And that's what this comes down to. People are disappointed with the finale of the Terminus Agenda, and I understand. It wasn't kind of the payoff that I think most of us were hoping for. Having said that, I think we need to admit that we were kind of all looking in one direction. We were all expecting it to go one way. I don't want to spoil the story, but if you've been reading the story, it's really been playing into the Damian and Slade Wilson relationship, and kind of hinting that there could be more to that relationship. And it didn't end up turning out the way that they wanted to. The story was a little more simplified than I think people had hoped. And I think if we were able to sit back and you weren't invested in this from a speculation standpoint, I would love to know the same people who hate it, if they would feel that way if they read it in trade 6 months later. I don't think so, because I still think it's a good story. I just think it didn't pan out the speculation way that most of us were hoping.
There's people in the chat that want to know, so if you can go ahead and I'm not that bent. I mean, I'll read it tomorrow, but yeah, you can spoil it.
Yeah, long story short, the assumption was that Damian Wayne was actually Deathstroke's son. And we found out that he's not Deathstroke's son. It was literally a kind of as simple a thing as the way that he's got mother issues. With the way Damian grew up, with his kind of away from Bruce and with his mother and Ra's, and then he's around Slade, who kind of treats him like a son. And that treating him like a son is what triggered him into the events of the series. So it wasn't actually being his son. It was an act as simple as rubbing his hair. And the term I heard used on Twitter a lot was ego. They didn't like how Damian comes off like he's got such a big ego. Like this guy treats you like a son. And even Kid Flash kind of doesn't really dig Damian's reasoning. But it wasn't the climax everyone had kind of expected.
Right. So we got more people coming into the chat. We got Thomas all the way from Portugal, so welcome to him. He's at the bar drinking some beers. So
love it.
Get on him. And Comic Ace as well. So moving on. This was another, the night before release, the news started getting out, right? But this was another book that a lot of people weren't expecting the news to come out that has, I guess you could say. Kind of the cliffhanger.
Caution. I put a big caution. I'm putting yellow tape all over this book.
Yeah, because they're known for making it look like something that might not be true. But
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's not true.
Yeah.
I don't believe it in my heart. And it's not because I'm personally invested, because honestly I could care less about The Walking Dead.
Yeah, do you think could it be like a dream or so we're gonna spoil it if you haven't read Walking Dead, earmuffs, but so basically he gets shot in the heart at the end, right? With from the Commonwealth. I forget. You do it. I'm horrible at book reviews. You do it.
Right. So we see I can't remember the guy's name. The guy from Commonwealth though. He comes in and he points the gun at Rick. Rick is sitting there, and then when it goes from the panel of the guy with the gun, the next panel we see Rick with blood on his shirt. And I'm wording it that way on purpose.
Yeah, it's ketchup.
Because my thing is, we see blood on his shirt, but we don't see a wound.
Yeah.
This is how I am as a speculator. I went back and started researching, looking at panels of people getting shot in Walking Dead, because I wanted to see if there was more detail to the wound. Now, obviously, like Carl's wound was disgusting. So there was a lot more detail. But all we see on the white shirt is blood. That's a blood spatter. What if somebody came up from behind him and shot him? What if he shot himself? We really don't know what that blood splatter was. And Robert Kirkman says in the notes, he says that we're going to have to wait till next month to see what happens, next issue. And Walking Dead has done this so many times where they've done it on the TV show. They've done it in the book, where they lead you to believe that they're going, a certain direction, and they don't go that direction. It's a swerve to sell books. Now, having said that, this book is selling out. It's starting to go above cover price.
It's going back to another print. It's like one of the first Walking Dead books, and who knows how long that's going back for a second print.
Right. I think it's going to be a good $10 to $15 book over the next week. So if you can buy it and flip it, do it. But as far as it being a, app alert worthy key, I don't know. This could be something in a month where this thing isn't worth anything. And that's going to be really tough to tell.
Blue Green Artifact says it was a salsa mishap.
So I know that everyone's logic is, yeah, Rick's dead because, that Rick's not going to be on the show. And I mean, I can't fault that logic. I'm just I'll believe it when I see it sort of thing with The Walking Dead. I also really wonder, if you were going to kill him, why would you do it in issue 191 and not issue 200? Yeah. There's such a huge symmetry if he was to die in 200.
Yeah, because Glenn died in 100, right?
Right. And the way he died, you're going to tell me after all this, Rick is going to die like on his ass, excuse my language, that's how he's going to die. I don't know. I something about it smells like a sales tactic. And remember what Brian said, first, second print, and God knows how long. Yeah. So they're making money off this. Image is an independent company. Skybound is an independent company. So I really think it's a marketing move in my heart, but we'll see.
Plus, it's created buzz for this title that you haven't seen in a while, comic wise.
Right. Right. That's right. The governor's son. That's who it was. Right. I almost said the governor, but I was like, that's wrong.
Yeah. But and with that. Go ahead.
No, yes, I was just gonna say. So this one is a buy with caution, and if you're looking for the quick flip, go ahead, but definitely be careful.
Yeah. And that wraps up Reader Buzz section for this week, right?
Absolutely.
So we're gonna move right into the Variant Buzz section. Some of these, now, you're gonna see some overlap, like we said at the week. So some of them we might kind of skim over real quick, the ones that we've discussed previously in the Bolo list. But real quick, the summary up there, we had the Years of the Villain, the 1 in 500, the DCeased variant, the Jim Bartel Virgin variant, the Ascendant number 1 in 10, and then of course the Mobius 1 in, was it 100? The
1 in 100.
Avengers?
Yeah, 1 in 100, Hidden Gem.
So we kind of talked about it earlier, but we're going to skim over it here again, and that's the Year of the Villain and Cheetah Variants.
Right, we broke the math down on that one.
So, I do like the 1 in 500, but I'm going to kind of wait it out and see if I can get it for a better price. I wasn't a big fan, like even when they first showed the art of that Art Germ Cheetah variant, I was just kind of like, I've seen better covers, but.
See, I like it just because Ben C. and I, the owner of CBSI, for you guys, if you ever see him in the chat, and I was in there earlier, he and I were kind of going back and forth months ago when Cheetah got talked about for the Wonder Woman movie, and we were trying to find like incentives with Cheetah on the cover, and there really isn't much at all. There's a Wonder Woman New 52 one that's probably your best option. I think it might be number 13. Don't kill me, I'm really guessing, but it's a Wonder Woman versus Cheetah cover. Other than that, your next best Cheetah options are Jenny Friz and DC cover Bs. So for that reason, depending on how Kristen Wiig does in this role in Wonder Woman 1984, I'm really a believer that Cheetah Variants could do something. But I agree with you. It's, maybe not the best you'd want to see. And there's definitely Art Germ fatigue. But I think it's undervalued. It's a cheap buy-in for a 1 in 100.
Right. Speaking of Friesen variants, her cover B for Wonder Woman is this coming week, right?
Right.
Number 70. Her cover for number 70 this week. Like, her covers to me have started, like, I always liked her covers, but they've seemed very similar. This one's still kind of similar, but at least the color tone's got that, like, turquoise blue cover into it. So the cover B for Wonder Woman 70 by Jenny Friesen this coming week, May 8th, is definitely one that will be in the weekly picks for sure. I'd really like that cover. But moving into the Variant Buzz, the next we have is the DCeased number 1. You had the Matina and then the Putri horror movie covers.
Right. This one never.
You
Go
can tell
ahead.
a lot of people. Sorry, looking at the covers, right? You can tell a lot of people instantly gravitate towards the zombie, the DC zombie covers that are coming out, especially in the Matina name. Just looking at it real quick, that would be one that I'm like, oh, I'd pick that one first. But then,
Right.
for other reasons beyond that, I'm kind of liking the Putri as well, which I'll let you discuss, and we're gonna go into the Putri one more later.
Right, right, yeah. We'll kind of table that one a bit. We'll talk about DCeased. I don't know how we pronounce it.
DCeased.
In general. There was obviously it wasn't in the reader buzz. There wasn't a reader buzz for this book. Most of the talk was about cover art, whether it was these two covers or the number of store variants. There were several store variants where you actually could have made some money, where there was a quick play to be made. Having said that, there were several store variants that I saw that were really run of the mill. So that's what ends up happening when you get kind of that glutton of store variants. But the reviews of this book haven't been great. A lot of people have kind of downed it, but I'm always cautious. It's one issue in. It's a story that's kind of an Elseworld story, so it's important that we kind of give it time to develop and get where it's going to go. Because you've got to tell this story that's so different from what's going on in the typical DC universe. I also think that the variants are more of longer plays because, like Brian was saying, the Matina Batman zombie, we're going to get a different kind of zombie variant for each cover that's going to be very similar. I think the set of them could do very well because we're going to get like a Wonder Woman and a Superman and so on and so forth. Also, we've got the Putri covers, which are going to be horror movie homages, which I think will do very well. I think that the It one stands out above the others, which is why we'll talk about it later. But this book is not moving more than cover. It's probably readily available in your LCS. Another one that you're going to hear negative talk about, and one that probably a lot of the kind of like overkill is due to the store variants. But another one to keep an eye on if the series picks up, if you start to see more and more buzz going about the series as it goes on, you may start to see those number ones dry up. At the same point, I think that variant sets will be attractive, and a lot of these variants will dry up over time. A lot of these stores who are doing store variants, these variants aren't incentives, remember, so they're not necessarily loaded down with these cover Bs and cover As. They didn't have to, so that's something to kind of keep your eye on.
Right. So, moving into the variant buzz section, next up we had the Marvel Tales Avengers, the Jen Bartel 1 in 50 Virgin variant.
Right. And so this one, obviously, we've kind of beaten these Jen Bartel Marvel Tales variants to death. They all have hit these similar prices. This one is selling for anywhere from $125 to $200. It's all over the place. It's definitely probably her least popular because it looks like it's going to land more at that $125 level. And,
right, but you definitely kudos to Marvel for marketing it, right? They release it like the week after the movie. So Avengers is hot on everyone's mind.
Great timing.
But
I actually think they might have done better with that Thanos one this week because that Thanos one is so incredible, and Thanos was also obviously all over the place. But yeah, this one's $125 to $200. But again, this is another one where you got to do the math because it's an $8 cover price book, and so for a retailer to order 50 copies, even at 50% off of cover, they're paying $200 just to access one of these. So if they're selling it for the top that it's going for, they're breaking even. And yeah, they're going to make their money off the regular cover if they sell the regular cover, which continues to be the problem. We heard a retailer in our chat make a joke about how, if they bought 50 covers, they'd still have 50 covers. Last week or last time we talked about one of these Marvel Tales. Again, they're reprint stories. They are available in other forms of media, whether it's trade paperback or floppy. So you're really buying this from a virgin cover art perspective. But Jen Bartel's hot right now. If you guys missed it, she dropped another 2 Adidas releases, a women's Captain Marvel Adidas sneaker and a men's Thanos So look, she's got a big deal with Adidas and Foot Locker. So look for more of those kind of Jen Partel designed Adidas sneakers coming out through Foot Locker. There's going to be flip opportunities for those as well. So that's a little Bolo show bonus for you guys.
Yeah. And Elephant in the Room brought up a good point. I think we even may have mentioned this before. Is some of the things that I don't like about these books is the reprints of the stories that they're putting in the books. They could, out of that whole catalog of reprints they have to choose from
Right.
for these, they kind of pick some, not crappy, but they could pick better ones, put it that way.
But you know why it is because they're not duplicating True Believer issues. And if you look at how many True Believer issues are being released right now, between True Believers and facsimile issues, Marvel's going crazy.
Yeah.
So there's so many releases going on. So I think all the best ones get kind of wrapped up in that sort of thing.
That's a good point as well. But I want what I want.
Right.
Yeah. So next up on the variant list, we had, this is Descendant number 1. This is the 1 in 10 from Aftershock, correct?
Correct. So this one had some buzz pre-release, I think mostly due to Aftershock 1 in 10s recently being very successful. If you think about that dark red 1 in 10, that Larry Stroman variant, that thing hit like $40, $50 the first week. So there was some buzz that this book would kind of hit the same level, but once release date come out, it kind of came and went. Again, we didn't really see much buzz on any individual book. So this book is currently selling about 10 to 13. I think if you bought it at ratio already, I'd still feel good about it, because the reality of the situation is when you're buying into indies, you're buying for options. If you're not buying the quick flip, if it isn't an initial reader buzz, your next opportunity to sell is an option. I think Aftershock has certainly been one of those companies that's been active with trying to push Hollywood options. And it's a story to kind of keep your eye on and see kind of where it goes. If you read the solicitation for a story, it's a story ready-made for TV or movie, without a doubt. It's one of the most kind of easily adaptable stories. It's more of a crime drama type thing. So it's already a type of trope we see on Netflix shows, or even kind of primetime dramas on, your NBC type deal. So it's one to keep an eye out for, and it's one that maybe if you read the book and you like it and you feel like some speculation there, keep an eye out for that 110, because it's still readily available. Prices are, the $10 to $13 ones are buying, and I do think it will creep up to about 20, because it seems like the next series of books that are available are at about that $19.99 shipped level. So I think it will move to about double ratio within a week, I would assume.
Yeah. Makes me think of like TNT type dramas.
Yeah.
But I'd love to see their Lollipop Kids get optioned. I really like their Lollipop Kids book.
I think so too.
But especially, the way Stranger Things and all these other kids and the Goonie type stories and Lollipop.
Yeah, right. Stranger Things showed that if you can hit nostalgia for adults, but also be approachable that like teens and tweens want to watch it, you're going to make a lot of money. Because teens and tweens are where the merchandise is.
Yep. So moving on, and the last book in the Variant Buzz section this week was the Savage Avengers, the Mobius 1 in 100 variant.
Which we talked about this when we talked about Savage Avengers. Right. So again, just to kind of recap, it was pre-selling at 125. It's dropped to about 80. And it's really not a personal thing to this variant. It's, again, mostly due to Savage Avengers. All of the books have dropped below ratio. This one's doing the best. But if you like Savage Avengers, we've heard a lot of people saying it's a good read. Its best chance of having legs is through reader buzz. So if pay attention to it, maybe read issues 2, issue 3, see how the series is going. And then if you decide, hey, I really like the series, I think a lot of other people are liking the series, the buzz is there, then go back and pick up those ratio incentives, because again, they're about half ratio on the 125, 150, and 1 on 100 is about 80% ratio.
Right. So we've gone through first appearances, we've gone through the reader buzz, we've gone through the variant buzz. Before we get into your long-term play this week, we kind of mentioned earlier Andy Tomberlin and the Spotlight article on comicbookinvest.com. We also have Andy, and then the Spotlight show that we've started. We've got one episode in the can that we've done, right?
Right.
But we have some stuff in the hopper, right? Some stuff kind of lining up. You want to kind of talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Because people, the audience of this show, we know that that's our core audience. So
Right.
we want to let you guys know first and foremost.
Right. So we'll I'll let him give you more details, but as the indie spotlight show is a little different because that's when we don't do it live. We like to record it where we have the indie publishers or creators from the indie industry where we basically have an interview lined up, we record it, and then that way after the fact we cut it up to make it a little bit more presentable, not presentable, but clean it up, add some graphics in, cut out the bunch of my uhs and so's and stuff like that, and then we live premiere it because that way we can participate in the chat. Mad Cave was awesome. We had Chris Sanchez who participated in the chat as well, answering questions. He's even gone back in and answered people's comments on the replay video. But with that being said, we have some cool stuff lined up. Some confirmed, some in the works. Jack, I'll let you disclose as much as you want or feel comfortable with disclosing as far as what we got going on.
All right. So yeah, well, we like Brian said, part of the beauty of doing it with a kind of scheduling and pre-taped is, we're dealing with people who work in an industry where things happen. So we had a cancellation this week. We had to kind of postpone. But our next episode, I feel like we're gonna go ahead and put it out there. We will be interviewing Arun Singh, who is the VP of marketing for Boom Studios. He's formerly from Marvel Comics. He is a major industry player. He's been involved with a lot of big time projects, and he is a real driving force behind all the things that Boom has going on, from Buffy and Angel to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to a lot of the creator-owned stuff that you see like Faithless. And we are really excited to kind of sit down with him and talk all things Boom Studios. So as you can see, we're diversifying our kind of coverage. We had Mad Cave with our first. We have some others lined up. Obviously, you've seen we've released a variant with Vault Comics. We have a good relationship with them. We are hammering out details of sitting down with someone from Vault Comics. So we know that a lot of people want to know about their homage program, the Vault Vintage. We want to get into it too. We want to know what their reaction to that second print #1, These Savage Shores, becoming $100 was. So we're excited for that. And then we also want to cover creators. We want to talk to people who are putting books out. So we are going to get an opportunity to sit down and talk to the creators of an upcoming IDW creator-owned series called Cantu, which, again, we talked about the teens and the tweens being the merchandise sellers. This is a kind of fantasy story that is kind of skewed to a younger audience. I compared it to almost like a Wall-E because it's kind of apocalyptic looking. But, yeah, it's available right now for pre-order from IDW. It has just a cover A and a 1 in 10 incentive. So there we're planning to sit down with both the writer and the artist and kind of get to talk about the creative process, preview the story, hopefully get you guys some real insider info. So hopefully that gives you kind of an idea of some of the process that we've begun. We're going to keep shooting to get bigger and bigger with the people. Any indie creators and artists out there, reach out to us, whether it's, from we want to do everything from small press to Image and IDW and everything like that. But we want to really give a voice to indie comics. I think Andy has done an amazing job with the Indie Spotlight series on comicbookinvest.com. He's built a major buzz behind his brand, and really the term is perfect because we are really trying to spotlight indies. It's not a pump and everything we've said about Mad Cave, or Brian and I have said about Vault. It's not doing anything for financial means. It's purely us supporting people that we think are putting out quality work. Because trust me, I will never name names, but there are other publishers that we have discussed that we have decided not to work with for reasons of quality, of business practice, of things like that. So we are discerning, and when we feel like there's somebody that's worth advocating, we're happy to jump on board. So we hope to give you a lot of value with that series, and we want you to know that even though you haven't seen that second episode, we have a lot coming. And please go check out that first episode when you get a chance and see what we've got coming on. Like and subscribe so you will know when that next episode is coming. And we look forward to, like Brian said, being in a live chat with you and being able to talk to you directly and answer questions that we may not have gotten through the context of the interview.
Yes. And if you saw the Mad Cave one, we are still working on getting Andy a little cowboy hat and some cowboy boots so he can sit there and prop him up on a desk and have a little long shot, because he's from Charleston, right?
Yeah, Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah.
He and I are both South Carolinians.
Yeah, but with him, you can tell
Right.
he's from South Carolina.
I'm originally from Connecticut, so
Yeah.
I'm a transported Southerner, so transplanted.
Like, Andy's like an extra on Dukes of Hazzard. That's how Southern he.
He's born and raised, baby.
Yes, and I love it.
Oh yeah.
So with that being said, we're going to move into your long-term play of the week, right? And your long-term play was the Putri DCeased horror homage variant.
Correct. Now, I will say this is the closest week I've ever had to maybe second-guessing myself, because I do like the spec on Batman TMNT 3, #1, that much, that I actually think that it's an antithesis of a long-term play. But so is this one. Now, is it hurt by the negative reader buzz? Maybe. But I saw a couple comments in the chat when we were talking about DCeased earlier, and I think people hit the nail on the head of why I believe in this as a long-term play. I picked it also on the Wednesday Warriors. I think you picked it as well as a sleeper pick.
Yeah,
so I think it was right. So I think we both picked it, and it's like I said, this to me checks all the boxes. Homage variants are hot. They've come and gone in the market, but they're hot right now. The Rejected has a hot homage out right now. And actually, I think that was the one we partnered with on comicbookinvest.com. But here you get a homage. The other two books that have been solicited, Nightmare on Elm Street, there's a incentive with, or a Putri variant for, I think, number 2 or number 3 with Nightmare on Elm Street, I think number 3 is Nightmare on Elm Street with Poison Ivy, and then there's The Nun with, I think, Superman. But, it's one of those things where The Nun and Nightmare on Elm Street, while they were as successful and culturally relevant in their time, it is culturally relevant right now. Again, merchandise for Pennywise moves at an incredible rate. This reenacting kind of that Pennywise Georgie scene, which if obviously I can't possibly be responsible for spoiling it for you after all of these years. But so obviously, Pennywise kills Georgie. And if you know the history between the Joker and Robin, there's some nice crossover here with this. So to me, the cleanness of the book, the simplicity of it, the nostalgia it hits you with it, the fact that it is coming back for round 2 with it too, which, it's going to have some major actors in it. Bill Hader is starring in it. I think it too is going to be very successful. Comic Case, I ruined it for him. Sorry, 30 years later. But but yeah, and then again, just the clean nature of this book. Putri does great work. I like all of the horror movie homages. We talk about on a weekly basis that horror is hot, but I think this one is far stand out over that Nightmare on Elm Street and the Nun variant. I think that this is one that will be bought by It collectors, It fans, Batman fans, as well as variant collectors. And it may never be a huge eBay book. Yeah. But we've talked about this before. I think this is one of those $10 at a convention live sale book where you'll be able to make money on this forever. I think once it dries up and you can't buy it for cover price, I think that it's a book that new collectors and young collectors who are looking for these kind of cool, inexpensive variants, this is the kind of book that you'll be able to sell. And it could be a $15.
Yeah. And then, a lot of them, they'll recognize the cover from It more than they will being Joker and Robin.
Or even caring about DCeased.
Yeah.
Or anything, even any of the guts of the book.
Like some of those was it some of those X-Men homage books, like The Exorcist homage and stuff like that?
I almost brought those up, too, because if you go back and look at those have performed well over time. They used to be dead product for a long time. But a lot of those X-Force books have kind of taken off. It started when X-23 obviously popped off. But, a lot of those, they did a Lost Boys one, things like that. So, and I'm interested to see with DCeased where they're going to go with and if they do it, I don't know how big this miniseries is, how many issues it is. But if they're going to do any others in the future. But I kind of believe in this book. I think it's a book that you're going to be able to sell for a long period of time. But like most DC cover Bs, you got to buy it. You got to stock it. Yeah. It's not a buy and flip. You're playing the long game with these DC cover Bs.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It's not going to be one of those books that like super skyrockets in value, but it's going to be. That's why I had it as my sleeper pick, pretty much down the road. Has that crossover appeal, everything you just mentioned. But
there's nothing wrong with buying for 3 and selling for 10 if you're able to do that without eBay fees and shipping. That's the key. If you eliminate eBay fees and shipping and you're selling at conventions, that's why I encourage any speculator. Once you grow to a point that you've reached a level that you can put a booth together, expand your game beyond just selling online.
Speaking of selling, right? I just shared today with you guys, Facebook is getting ready to start charging you 5% fee when you're selling on Facebook. So I don't know if that's 5%, and then on top of that, if they're checking out with PayPal, you're starting.
I think it is. If you check out through PayPal, you'd have to add another 3%, so you're looking at 8% total.
So make sure if you're going to sell on Facebook, you check out that policy's changing. They send an email out for it. But with that being said, that wraps up the Bolo list for this week, right?
Absolutely.
So we had first appearances. Kind of, like we said, not a super packed week. There wasn't. When I say super packed, I think we didn't have that one monster book, right, or two,
right,
couple monster books that everyone goes after. I mean, you can kind of make the case with the Bartel, the way that's been going, but there wasn't that.
Well, and if you were the typical comic buyer and you bought kind of like the typical stuff that came out today, if you bought DCeased, and if you bought The Year of the Villain, and if you bought Savage Avengers, you didn't make any money, so you don't feel great about this week. Right. But this is a week that will be really interesting as we continue to do this show, to go back and watch this episode a year or two from now, see where a lot of these books sit. I can't wait till the day that Brian and I can do throwback content based on these shows.
Right. And then next week is a bigger week. I mean, the DC, the way their release schedule is, I mean, if you're an Art Germ fan, you got the Catwoman covers, you got the Flash, Detective, that Wonder Woman cover. Marvel has a lot of War of the Realms tie-ins that's coming out. Vault has these Savage Shores coming out. So next week's going to be a pretty good week.
Yep.
And with that being said, thanks for everyone in the chat. Jack, do you have any closing comments before we go for the evening?
No, the last thing is just remember that long-term play is what it is. It's a long-term play. Play the long game, guys. Yeah. Avoid the short game. You avoid the pitfalls.
And people in the chat can, and if you're watching the replay, comment down below as well. So we do this Bolo list, and I did see someone in the chat was like, "Hey, how come you guys aren't talking about the Thanos book from last week?" Maybe that's something we might want to do before we get into the Bolo list. Maybe a short recap of the previous week, kind of the hotter books, kind of cover those to see, hey, it's been a week. This is what we've seen the trends doing. We can do that for a couple minutes before we get into the Bolo list each on the shows. If you guys in the chat or watching in the replay, put in the comment. And if you guys would like to see a small recap from the week before, definitely let us know, because that's something we want to make the show as good as we can, and also we want to make content that you guys want to see. So by all means, do you agree with that, Jack?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think a last week look back could have some value there. So let us know. Definitely let us know up in the chat how you feel about that. Also, let us know which of these books that you think has any long-term value. You let us know what your opinion is. We want to know. Yep.
So definitely appreciate it. We do have some giveaways that are being lined up in the show between Naked Slabbed Heroes, who's a sponsor, and then we have some stuff from our own books, and then we also have stuff from comicbookinvest.com. So we do have some giveaways coming up. And with that being said, definitely appreciate you guys tuning in each and every Thursday. I love this community. Love seeing the same people in the chat week in and week out. Love seeing new people come into the chat. As always, we always say any recommendations you guys might have that can help improve the show, definitely let us know. And Jack, you get the last word.
Yeah, thank you guys, and I appreciate everybody who reposts and reshares this show. I see you guys. I try to like and comment on everything I can, but if I don't, I'm sorry. I appreciate it wholeheartedly. Like Brian said, we have the best audience, and I'm real happy with the core we've built, and you guys are championing us more than anybody, and we appreciate that.
Exactly. And with that, we will see you guys next Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern. Good night, guys.